All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap. We have someone from the land down under.
Yes.
Mr. Michael Mojo Johnson. Did you know, fun fact, you're the second Michael Johnson that's been on this podcast?
No kidding. Well, no one ever calls me Johnson, so it's normally just Michael Mojo for that reason, because every time I'd go around, they're like, are you related to this Johnson? I'm like, I'm not. Like, in Australia, Johnson's super common, so...
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy's actually, he's half African-American, half white.
Okay.
And he's a third generation martial artist. You should watch the podcast. It's actually sick. He's my neighbor too.
Okay.
But he's like a gangster. So I texted him. I was like, yo, interviewing the second Michael Johnson. He's like, I guess all Michael Johnsons are badasses. So
I'll take it.
take it. So guys, for those of you guys that don't know, Mojo is what he goes by. It's going to be a fun episode because you and I actually bumped into each other at the Vault conference.
Yes.
On the CEO night. And we were chatting with really interesting guy, Ryan Montgomery.
Yes.
And I think that I jumped into the conversation. You guys were talking about like the hacker world and stuff. And then we got to chatting, and I was like, dude, we got to get your story out on Bridging the Gap and how you bridge the gap, because I kind of want to just jump straight into your story when you were a kid and then how you've been able to grow in your business. We'll get into all kinds of stuff. But first off, what's it like growing up in Australia? Because I'm from the United States. I have no idea. Never even been.
Well, I mean, you got to grow up tough, right? Because everything's going to eat or kill you. Even the shit that's fluffy and cute will try to kill you somehow. So even kangaroos, the big reds, they're big. They get like 6 foot plus, and they're the jacked ones that stand there and like flex and puff their chest out and have like the biceps and all that sort of stuff. But essentially they do a lot of damage because they stand up on their tail.
Yeah.
And because their tails are so thick, they stand back on their tail and then they use their legs and they kick.
They kick you.
Yeah.
It's almost like a horse getting kicked in the head or something.
Definitely, except they have just sharp toenails, so you got to be careful. So yeah, we have some pretty crazy animals down there. But yeah, that's what it's like growing up in Australia.
So you got to be tough, rugged.
Well, you just have to know that when you walk, I mean, we drove past the sign, right, and it had be careful of rattlesnakes or something like that. You learn to grow up in an environment where you're just aware of things. So, you know, like if you're walking in, we call it scrubland, which is sort of like dry, arid land, sort of like it is here as well. Mm-hmm. In summer, it gets really hot, so a lot of the grassland dries out. You've got to drag your feet and scrub your feet on the ground as you're walking, so it scares the snakes off. Because we have brown snakes, like where we're from in South Australia, the brown snakes, they're one of the most deadly snakes in the world. And they're everywhere. So when I say everywhere, in metropolitan Adelaide, you don't see them. Like I don't see them at our house. But if you go walking in the scrubland or in the bushland, then you definitely see them around the place. And they can get to like 6-7 foot long. They can be pretty dangerous. Anywhere you go in Australia, there's normally some sort of crazy snake that'll kill you. You go swimming in the ocean, we've got some of the world's most deadly sea snakes. Then if you go, walking through the scrubland or the bushland, we've got some of the world's most venomous snakes. So you've got like the taipans, inland taipan and coastal taipan. You've got brown snakes. So you just have to be aware of them. And then there's the big pythons as well. So they're the ones you see where they fall through the roof and shit like that. Because they climb into roof cavities in order to mate. Because they try and look for dry areas. Really? So you go into the roof cavities and then all of a sudden you'll see that they just fall through the roof because they're these big, fat,
they're huge.
Chunky, long snakes that, drywall's not used to having a big, heavy snake like just falling around.
This is insane.
Not that you see that regularly, right? So like, we don't just wake up in the morning and like, holy shit, that you do in certain environments. Like if you live in the countryside, out of metropolitan area, you see snakes a lot more.
Right.
But we have stuff like echidna. So
what's that?
Echidna are like almost like a porcupine, but they're small. So they're like these cute little animals with little noses and stuff, and they eat ants, but they have spikes on them. So they have these thorns. And when you get close to them, they curl up in a ball, and there's all these spikes that pop out. So there's echidna. You've got platypus. So you familiar with the platypus? They're like,
the bill.
Yeah, so they have the bill, but I think they're the males, have a claw, and the claw has toxin in it or poison in it. So if you get if they hook you, then they can cause a bit of damage. Then where we're from, we live right on a lake. There's blue ring octopus. So the blue ring octopus are these little octopus, and when they get harassed or feel threatened, they have these almost like electric blue rings that light up around them. They're deadly. I think they are the most deadly, or one of the most deadly animals on the planet. And they're these little cute octopus.
Wow.
And so kids can be playing around in the rocks, and then the next second they see this little octopus, put their hand under there, and that's it. Like, So there's no, I don't believe there's anti-venom because it's not that they have a poison.
It's electric?
No, they have, apparently there's bacteria. They have a lot of bacteria on their beak. So octopus have a beak that they eat with. Apparently on that, the beak has some form of bacteria or whatever that is highly toxic. And so if they bite you, then you fuck. Now, look, someone can go fact check this shit because I'm probably all wrong, right? That's probably not the beak. They probably have some thorn or
whatever. But
I thought it is. But essentially, like, there's just this shit around the place all the time. Where we're
crazy,
from,
dude. It's unheard of.
you know, where we come from, they have great white sharks. So they're the craziest, like,
Biggest,
nastiest sharks.
massive 16 footers, 20 footers. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're not the biggest because there's not where we're from. They don't have the whale sharks or anything like that, right? I think they're the biggest shark. Someone can fact check that shit as well. I don't know.
Drop it in the comments.
Hell, yeah, drop it in the comments. Who knows? I'm just making all this shit up, right? Like, we doesn't have a echidna. There's no such thing as a platypus. Kangaroos don't fight. I don't know. Someone will fact check it. Some asshole out there will be like, yeah, he said this wrong. You know what they're like. But anyway.
And we're going to bridge the gap.
Okay, good.
To talk about success in your business journey, because it's pretty incredible. And you're sharing some of the story there, but I feel like success and like the path to entrepreneurship and success and creating wealth, financially is the same thing. Like, you go start a business or you go take a sales call and you turn over the rock. Like, oh, can't say that to a prospect. I get hung up on, right? You can't do that. Can't do that. So for you, one of the things I think we connected on was human influence and human psychology. Mm-hmm. And you have an extensive background of studying that stuff. And I asked you why you were so fascinated by it. And it was because of your upbringing.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your upbringing and how you feel like that shaped, the things that you ended up learning and kind of what you do now with your human performance.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I don't want to go into too long a story because it is a bit long, but, look, from a kid, my parents were kids. My mum was 17 when she had me. My dad was 19 and we didn't have any money. Mm-hmm. So growing up, dad worked 2 jobs. Mum stayed at home until I was 5. Once I went to school, my sister was put into kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And then I went to school. When I was at school, I would walk and go and pick my sister up from kindergarten and take her home and put on toast. And then I would make her toast and peanut butter or toast and jam or something like that. Because both my parents worked. I mean, these days my parents would probably go to jail for, child neglect. But, that was just how we were brought up. And so I've always been very independent from a young age. But then going through school, my mum put a lot of pressure on me because she dropped out of school in order to have a child. She fell pregnant out of wedlock in a Catholic family with in Australia, we call him a bogan, but essentially they're a redneck, who my dad was, you could say he's a bit of a redneck, but not so much anymore, but he was back in the day.
Okay.
She just put a lot of pressure on me because I think her dream was to go to university or to college. All of her family went to college apart from her. Now, her family weren't wealthy either. Like my grandparents, my grandmother was a stay-at-home mum. My grandfather, he dropped out of school at 13 because his dad died. And so he was the man of the house. His mum never worked. So he went off and got a job at 13. Huh. And then he never had any siblings, so he wanted to have kids. They had 4 kids, so my mum's one of 4. And all he ever wanted for them was to get a good education because that was a thing that was a void he had, right? It was the thing that was missing from his life. And maybe he thought that would have given him more success or a better life if he'd had that education. Mm-hmm. He was an extremely smart man. He was well-read, very disciplined. He very rarely said anything, but when he spoke, you listened because whatever he was saying was going to be something that you needed to hear. Huh. He was just one of those very influential men where he didn't have to say anything, but you knew what was going on. Mm-hmm. He's definitely a man that I look up to. So my mum falling pregnant out of wedlock in that environment, I think put a lot of pressure on her as well because she felt like she'd let maybe her dad down or her family down, which I guess she did. And then all of her siblings went off to university. They all got high-paying jobs. Like my auntie was the marketing manager for Mattel Asia Pacific, the toy company, Mattel. Mm-hmm. My uncle, he was one of the general managers of the Adelaide Casino or the casino in Adelaide. My other uncle was the head of the Hotels Association in South Australia. And then there's my mum working selling shoes, right? And my dad working 2 jobs because he dropped, he got kicked out of school at 15 or 16 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so they worked their ass off. So they were grinders. They just fucking worked hard. I saw that work ethic and that's what I loved about them and I learned from them. But at the same time, my mum pushed me to do well at school. Except I was a kid who got in trouble all the time. I was picked on. I had bright red hair. I had freckles. Kids used to pick on me. I used to cry. But then I learned that if you're the kid who gets picked on and cries, they just pick on you more. So I learned how to beat the shit out of everybody. So then,
I love this guy.
yeah. So then all that happened was I'd get bullied at school and then I'd just beat the shit out of the kid. And then all of a sudden I'm doing detention. I'm in fucking trouble all the time. You know, my mum's like, why are you always in trouble? And I'm like, well, I got picked on and I decided to punch the kid in the face. I literally threw a kid through a glass wall. Yeah, like...
How old were you when you threw him through the glass wall?
I was in grade 9 at school.
Oh, wow.
I remember the kid's name. He actually has come and done one of my courses before.
No way.
Yeah. So
I want to be like this guy.
I was good friends with him sort of on and off through school, but I don't know whether he was insecure or not, but he was just one of those guys, like he'd be your friend one day and then the next second, like he's talking shit about you or whatever. And so this one day he was just giving me shit and I just grabbed him and swung him around and there was a glass window there and he just fell through the glass window. And, you know, I didn't know what happened. He was just standing there and the next second he's through the glass window. I don't know what happened.
Same thing with him. He's like, well, one second, Mojo was my friend. Next minute, he's not.
Well, I mean, there was sort of a bit of a gap that happened there, you know. I was friends with Mojo. I gave him shit. Then the next second, I ended up through a glass window. I don't know what happened. But
so he's trying to play the victim on you and stuff.
Oh, nah, he
or did he own it?
Yeah, he copped it like a champ.
Did he?
Yeah, he was the sort of guy who had a head that needed punching in every now and again. But I mean, he was just that bloke. So anyway, I ended up getting expelled from school, and I fell into this downward spiral where I just went, you know what? I'm in trouble at home all the time. I'm in trouble at school all the time. I don't fit in with the other kids. I don't want to be here anymore. So that was that sort of moment in my life. And then I was sitting there this one night, tears running down my face, and I'm like, that's it. I'm ready to end it all. And in that moment, I realized that I'd given away all my power. And I had a big kitchen knife in my hand ready to end everything. And I just got so emotionally distraught where I just remember thinking, like, how did I let everyone dictate my value? And then I grabbed the kitchen knife and threw it and cut open the blinds. And this light sort of shone in. And I'm not going to say that, you know, there's any sort of religious iconology or anything like that happened. It was a street light just came through and I was like, how did I allow other people to dictate my own value? And it was in that moment that I made a commitment to myself that I would never, ever allow anyone to determine my value in this world again. And that was sort of my first moment. Then I was around about 2021, and my best friend's 3-year-old niece was killed in a car accident. Now, the reason why I didn't end my life that night was because of him. And I remember thinking the guilt that he would feel if he wasn't there, you know, and I wasn't there for him. And anyway, so his 3-year-old niece is killed in this car accident. And I remember being at a funeral and watching this little white coffin going into the ground. If you ever want to think about life, just watch a little coffin going into the ground of a young child that never got to live. Here I was like 20, 21, thinking that my life is shit. I was doing an apprenticeship at the time as a mechanic. I wanted to go and work in the mines, make a ton of money, because all I got told was, you get a job, you make a shitload of money, you buy a house, put that white picket fence up, you get married, you have kids, buy a couple of investment properties, life's fucking sweet. I tried that, right? I tried working in an environment that I didn't like. Most of the guys there were going away and working in the mines, and in Australia, mining is a big industry. There's a lot of money in it. So these guys are going away, leaving their families, leaving their friends, going and working up in the mines, maybe 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or 3 weeks on, 1 week off, something like that. They're earning a couple $100,000 a year. They got jet skis, they got boats, they got motorbikes, all of that sort of shit. And on Monday morning, you walk in and you go, how's your weekend? Oh, it was fucked. How's the wife? Oh, she's fucked. How are your kids? Oh, they're fucked. I got to come back to this shithole again and I got to work. And it was just, you know, those type of people that just suck your energy from you. And it's like Monday morning, energy sucked.
Yeah.
Like these people hated life. And I'm sitting there going, like, I'm a pretty practical person, right? I might not be the smartest university educated motherfucker out there, but I was very street smart from a young kid. Looking at these people, I started to question everything. I'm like, hang on, these guys are making all the money. They're fucking miserable. How did I get convinced that the goal was to go to school, go to university, get a good job, get a good education? And if you're not smart enough to go to university, you get a trade, then you go and work in that trade, you make money, buy the white picket fence, get married, have kids, happily ever after. Well, that wasn't happily ever after. So I started questioning everything. You know, when my best friend's 3-year-old niece was killed, I was like, you know what, I need to do something different. This is what the questions that I asked in that moment. I still remember the exact moment. The coffin's almost in the ground, and I was just upset. These questions popped into my head just in that moment. What's the purpose of your life? Why do you exist? Why are you here? And how are you going to be remembered when you're not here? I'd never thought about that before. I'd never thought about it. Never even thought about it. Never crossed my mind. So I went on a journey to try to figure out those answers. Anyway, flicking through the newspaper one day, and this ad comes up and it says, become a personal trainer. Now, we're talking 20 years ago. Personal trainers were like buff. Back in the day, you were either like Arnold, where you wanted to go and just do a ton of juice and get on stage in little tidy whities and, do some flexing. So you were either buff dude on gear, and this was like in the era of Ronnie Coleman and stuff like that as well. So that was pretty cool, right? Mm-hmm. You were one of the Lycra wearing gym people that do the jumping and shit. But there wasn't really a profession as personal trainer. Like, no one really had a personal trainer. But I was like, you know what? The gym was the only place that ever made me feel good about myself.
Right.
I was a redheaded kid who was chubby, who wore a t-shirt at the grade 5 swimming carnival because I didn't want to take off my shirt because I was ashamed of the way I looked. To me, at 13, I picked up a weight. I have not gone longer than a couple of weeks without training since that day. No more than a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And it's probably because I was sick or something like that.
Yeah.
These days, it's rare for me not to train for more than like 3 days. Right. It's just a thing. Right. Mm-hmm. So the gym made me feel good. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I want to work in that environment because I love the fact that I'd go to gym after work. The guys and the girls there were all there to be better. Everyone spoke to each other well. We all looked after each other. Unfortunately, gym culture has changed a little bit, right? Like these days I see the shit on Instagram and, stuff like that where, women are calling out men for looking at them, even though they've pretty much got their like fucking puss hanging out in the gym. They've got their fucking hard nipples hanging out in a boob tube and they're like, well, people are looking at me. Well, fucking people like that just deserve to be headbutted and thrown in the gutter. Like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen with your norks out? Like, it's so dumb, right? I mean, I should go there and wear a fucking G-banger and people are probably going to look at me as well. But anyway. My point is, sorry, I'm probably going to get your podcast wiped off of air. But my point is, right, like gym culture back then was a supportive environment. Like you're a young dude, you're lifting weights.
Yeah.
I'm an older guy. I'm going to come up and help you out because you're a young guy and you're having a crack.
Yeah.
Women walk into the gym, you look after them, right? If someone's perving on them or doing something inappropriate, you go and talk to that motherfucker and they get thrown out. Like that's it. It was an environment where everybody was there to get better and everybody knew that. It didn't matter what you did. If you walked in that environment, didn't matter your age, didn't matter your sex, didn't matter your fucking sexual orientation, you were there to get better and everyone was there to help. And that's what I loved about it. I started doing that part-time. And then when my best friend's 3-year-old niece was killed in a car accident, I realized that the mechanic industry wasn't the industry that I wanted to be in. So I started doing a little bit of personal training. And then one day the boss called me into the office and I was only just messing around personal training, doing some like outdoor training and stuff. But the boss called me into the office and he said, we're going to sign you off your traineeship or your apprenticeship. And I remember feeling so sick because I knew that was going to be the rest of my life. This was as good as life was ever going to get, was working a job that I didn't really enjoy. And then I just went, you know what, fuck it. I put the toolbox in the car. I walked back into the office. I said, I'm out of here. He said, what do you mean? And I said, I'm out of here. And he goes, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. It's not this. And anyway, the head boss was the head of a large trucking organization. So he was probably a billionaire. Anyways, this little Italian guy, and he looked at me and he said, Michael, don't end up like the rest of these fuckers. Go do what you love. And I was like, hell yeah. Drove to my mum and dad's house, took out the toolbox. My mum burst into tears. What are you going to do with your life? Like, if you just stick out of 10 years, you'll be set. I said, Mum, in 10 years, I'll be dead. And then I walked into the gym and I said, look, I'll do anything. I'll clean toilets. I'll clean the bathroom. Just give me a crack. And they said, all right, there's a desk shift. Now, back in the old days, they used to have barcodes and you had to scan the barcodes when people walked in. But within like a month, I knew everyone in the gym. I was training there anyway. And so I'd train with the guys. I knew most of the girls. But I loved being in that environment. And so I just excelled in it. And then, as time went on, like to cut a long story short, the way I got into personal development was I was still a bit of a jughead at that time. But
what head?
Jughead.
Jughead.
Like jughead.
Okay. Lifting weights.
Dumb. Yeah.
Dumb. Got it.
But in about the crossover where I was quitting as a mechanic and then getting into personal training, I really didn't have a lot of money. I was struggling. I had a girlfriend at the time. And then one day I got home and I thought the house had been robbed. But what it was my girlfriend took all my shit and left.
Took your shit?
Yeah, took my shit, took her shit and just left. And it was probably because I just wasn't the best guy as well. Like it wasn't her. It was just, I just wasn't the best person to be around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm back at home. I'm living with my parents. Me and mum are clashing because she's like me. She's driven. I'm driven. She's determined. I'm determined. She doesn't put up with shit from anyone. I don't put up with shit from anyone. You know, she knows what she wants in life and doesn't fuck around. I know what I want in life and don't fuck around. And so we clashed.
Right.
You know, it's interesting how, you know, I've studied a lot of family dynamics and stuff like that over the years.
Yeah.
But the parent that you tend to clash with the most has the most similar traits to you.
Mm-hmm.
And parents don't realize this, but the child that tends to piss them off the most is the child most like them.
Yeah.
And so you tend to connect with your counterbalancer, right? The one that's the opposite, not the same. The similars clash.
Right.
And so I'm living back at home with mum and dad. I'm broke, you know, lying on the bed. I was still working as a mechanic, but I had that shitty job. So just a
23,
little bit
24.
And no, I was still about 20, 21, 22.
Okay.
Around about that time. My times are sort of all mixed up because like all this shit happened around the same time. I probably should go back and like get the exact dates and timeline it all and stuff. I just have never really given a fuck about it.
How old are you now?
I'm 41. I turned 41.
41.
So,
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Look great, man. It's
Thank
the
you.
working out. Because you
Thank you.
started that when you were 20.
Oh man, I just had a full facial reconstruction.
Did you?
No, I didn't.
I was like, shit, you look pretty good, dude.
Thank you. I'll take it. Around that time, like I was living back at home, and I was lying on my bed one night. I had night sweats. Later, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and that's a completely different story. Where a doctor told me I never had the energy of a normal person. I was like, fuck you. And then I went and got fit. I got healthy. I looked after my diet, and now I have more energy than like a 21-year-old. It was something that they told me I'd never have the normal energy of a normal person. Yeah. But anyway, that's a different story.
It's an important story, though, because I think there's a lot of people watching right now that have been told something by a teacher, by a parent, by someone they look up to, someone that was above them, a doctor. You'll never be better. And you made that decision earlier that I'm not going to let other people put my value on me. And how did you...
I didn't like being told what to do. And I've always been like that. Like my mum would say, don't eat the chocolate. I'm like, I don't even want the chocolate, but I'm going to fucking eat it anyway.
Yeah, you gotta use reverse psychology. I'm the same way.
Yeah. Awesome. Jess knows that. Jess is like, you won't go to the gym. I'm like, I'm already out the door, just like fucking flexing here and here. It's like, you won't eat clean tonight. I'm like, fuck you.
You're not driven by madness at all.
Nah. No, I was talking to Andy Elliott before, and he's like, I think he said that. He's like, I'm driven by madness, and I'm driven by chaos. It's just, I'm fine. Like, I love challenge. I love adversity. Like, I love the push. Totally. But yeah, so I'm lying on the bed one night. I've got this night sweat. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm rolling over trying to get to sleep. The fucking fan's on. My mum won't let me turn the air conditioner on because, you know, back then I used to think she was an asshole. I'm just like, man, this sucks. And then all of a sudden, you know, this guy comes on TV and he's talking about like changing your life. And normally I'd sit there and I'm like, this stuff's bullshit. But just for some weird reason, I was just at a low point where it connected. And I think this is the importance of personal development, right? And I was talking to Andy Elliott and his team. Mm-hmm. The importance of doing sales, especially in personal development, when the person's ready, you got to close them. And I think in the personal development space, it's a space in sales which is so different than most other spaces. Like I know there's probably a lot of people who are watching this who are in sales. Mm-hmm. But like if you're thinking about buying a house, that might be like a 6 to 12 to 24 month process, right? You know, you talk to your wife and you're like, oh, I think we're going to buy a house. And then you talk about it and then, you know, eventually you buy the house. Personal development's like, this is bullshit. Fucking life sucks. I got to change. That's the day.
It's a moment of pain. It's about 2 weeks. They have 2 weeks till they buy something.
Well, for most people, it's like fucking 24 hours. Because you call them back tomorrow and they're like, oh, no, man, I'm good. I had a couple of beers. I ate some food. Like, I'm feeling good now.
Totally.
And you're like, hang on. Yesterday when I called you, I mean, you've got to be a good salesperson to remind them of that pain. Like, you definitely can. You can close someone at any time. But for most people in the personal development industry, it's the moment of pain or the moment of weakness you got to close them on. Yeah. Because if you let it go like 2 days, I mean, think about this. Someone gets home from work. They're like, I fucking hate my job. That's it. I'm quitting next week. They have the weekend. On Monday morning, they're like, oh, I'm going back to work again.
Yeah.
And then Friday, they're like, fuck, I hate this thing. It's bullshit. Like, I don't know if America's like that, but I sound like almost 90% of Australia's like this.
Right.
Right. And then Monday comes, it's like, oh, I had the weekend. I'm great again. It's going to take them like 15 years to quit that job. They ain't going to quit. They ain't going to do shit. And I tell people that. They're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm like, bro, you won't do shit. You haven't done shit. Shut the fuck up. Like, what are you going to do? You're not going to do anything because you've never done anything. Right. I'm used to pushing buttons. I mean, I am a prick most of the time. But I'm a coach, right? Like,
Yeah.
you've got to use these but especially for men.
Yeah.
Most men get in the pattern of just convincing themselves that something's going to change in the future. The
Yeah.
thing is, nothing's ever going to change because the thing that you need to do is the thing that you're avoiding, which is making a different decision, right? Make a different decision. The day you make a different decision is the day your life changes.
It's true.
But that was that night, right? So I'm lying in bed. This guy comes on TV. I'm highly skeptical. Like you said before, Australians with sales, they're skeptical, right?
They are.
Because we live in one of the safest countries on the fucking planet, right? Like, what are you going to do? Here's the thing. We got private healthcare. So you're sick, just go to hospital, man. Tomorrow, it's all covered. You lose your job, that's okay. We have something called the dole. So if you lose your job, that's okay. We'll pay you shit, but you still get paid. So you still have food. There's government assisted housing. Like, even if you're the biggest piece of shit, you'll probably still be okay in Australia.
You won't die.
It's not going to be a good life, but hey, you'll be all right. In other countries around the world, that stuff doesn't happen. You don't have private healthcare. You're sick. We grab you out of the hospital. We drag you out. We just leave you in the gutter. That's what happens in most places around the world. That shit doesn't happen in Australia. So you can be the laziest piece of shit and you'll still be okay. That stuff doesn't fly in most countries around the world. So my point is, like, that night I was lying there. This guy gets on TV. He's jumping up and down. He's like telling people that they can change their life. I see Oprah Winfrey, right? She's walking through hot coals and shit. And for some weird reason, I was just like, you got to change. I get out of bed. I go and walk over. It's back in the old days of dial-up internet. I type in my bank. It comes up. I put in the thing makes a sound. All the fucking sounds and shit of dial-up internet. You probably don't even remember dial-up internet.
What year was this?
I don't know, like 2000 something, like 2004, maybe 2006.
It's like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, there you go.
Born in 2000.
Yeah, so you wouldn't even know what dial-up internet is. But back in the old days, man, you used to...
Oh, no, I do actually. I remember. It was so slow.
It was so slow.
My friends had it. I'm like, dude, you're on this old crap? Like, I remember I was starting to get older. I'm like, dude, you can't even search the internet with that stuff.
Oh, so bad. And then what happens is someone calls the phone.
And it cuts it.
So you'd be like halfway like typing in shit to research it. And it was on Internet Explorer, right? That was back in the old days. So you type it in, next second it makes all these funny noises. Someone calls the fucking phone. Bang,
you lose your crap.
You lose your shit. I'm like,
whoever's on the other side of that, they're done.
Oh. So anyway, I get on, I check my bank account, $230 in the bank account.
Okay.
The program was $229. I was like, shit, do I put fuel in my car tomorrow and get to work? Or do I buy this program? I'm buying the program. So I walk out of bed very quietly. I walk into the kitchen because my mobile phone, I couldn't call. I didn't even have enough money. I'd prepaid mobile phone. So on one of the old Nokia 6110s or whatever, like the brick, like if you throw it at someone, you kill them. It's like the best weapon ever. Like these days, you need a knife and gun and shit. You just throw your phone at them, you kill them. Anyway, that's a joke, by the way.
Like a nunchuck.
It is. You wipe people out with it. Like, yeah. But anyway, so I walk out. I go pick up the phone. I creep back to my bed because if I woke up my mum, she would have fucked me up. I walk back in. I call the number. It's a 1-300 number to the US.
Yeah.
And I buy this program. A couple of weeks later, this product arrives. And I start walking around the street like it was Tony Robbins, right? And so on the first program, it says you got to find something you're grateful for. I'd never even heard of the fucking word gratitude. So like I get people in my community, they're like, I don't know where to start. I'm like, bro, I didn't even know what gratitude was. Never heard of the word. I'd never even heard of the word. No one spoke about it. I heard about Playboy. I'd heard about cars. I'd heard about doing burnouts. I'd heard about like getting in trouble at school. I'd heard about all this shit, but I'd never heard about gratitude. Weird, hey? That's the environment I grew up in. So I end up, for a month, I'd wake up every morning with my little iPod Nano. It was like 512 meg, right? So it didn't even hold a full CD. You'd get half a CD on.
Oh, no.
Right? So I'm walking around listening to this Tony Robbins thing. He's talking about being grateful and finding things you're grateful for. It took me a month to find the first thing that I'd ever experienced gratitude for.
Wow.
And I remember the exact moment it was and the exact place it was because it just impacted me. And I was like, I'm walking. Some people don't have legs. I have legs and I'm grateful for that. That was like my first experience of gratitude ever.
Wow.
So that's where I started from. So anyone who's listening to this who's like, oh, it's easy for you because you've got money. I started from a place where I didn't even know what gratitude was. And it took me a month to realize that I had legs.
Wow.
That was it. And so that's where I started from. And that's why now I'm such a proponent of personal development, right? Like like I give people shit online all the time because I'm like, I work with trade-based people in Australia mainly, right? I work with a lot of business owners.
How old are they?
Look, I mean, we have guys and girls who come in who are like 18, 19. We have people who are in their 60s and 70s. But I mean, I work with all different types of business owners, but our main demographic is trade-based, right? Okay. So plumbers, electricians, and you know, people who do drywall and stuff. Mm-hmm. But they'll say things like, I'm on the phone to them doing a sales call, and they're like, you know, what you do is expensive. I'm like, okay, cool. Got a new car? They're like, oh yeah, man, I got a brand new like Dodge Ram TRX. I'm like, in my head, I'm just like, you piece of shit. Like, you piece of shit. That car has more value than you have because you're valuing that car over yourself. Mm-hmm. That's why you're fucked. That's why you're stuck. That's why you're going around in circles. Mm-hmm. Hey, I get it. I was a dude who had to make a decision that night to spend every fucking cent that I had. I had $1 left in my bank account. I had to go borrow money to get to work the next day because I couldn't afford to put fuel in my car. But I made the decision, personal development over getting to work. Mm. That's what I did. So now when I'm doing sales calls and stuff, every time I'm on the phone with someone, they're like, oh man, I need to think about it. I'm like, hang on. You rang me or got online and you said, I want to change something, right? Because if not, why are we having this conversation? Right. And now you're telling me that you're not sure. You're prepared to pay for your, you know, in Australia, Dodge Ram TRXs are like $500,000 or probably maybe $250,000, right? They're expensive cars. But you're prepared to drive around in a nice car because the car gives you value and validation. That's because you don't have it. If you had it, you wouldn't give a fuck about that car. I've got a McLaren. Cool. But if I lost it, it does not impact my life whatsoever. Right. The only reason I have one of those cars is because I'm a car guy. I love my fucking cars. But the thing is, is my value come from those cars? Fuck no. You can take that car away. I'll sell the car. It doesn't matter. I love the car. Do I want to keep it? Hell yeah. I still have my R8. It was the first like nice supercar that I bought. I still have the original R8 I bought like 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. I don't want to sell it, but if I had to, I'd sell it. Yeah. Because my value doesn't come from the car. It doesn't come from my house. It doesn't come from the shit that I have. It doesn't come from anything. It comes from the man that rocks up every morning and gets out of bed. That's my validation. Because that dude there worked his motherfucking ass off. He goes to the gym all the time. He exercises. He builds good relationships with people. He looks after people. He works on his mindset all the time. He has all these skill sets that he's developed over the years from sinking, you know, a couple of $1 million at least into study and learning and development. That shit can't be taken away. And Warren Buffett said one of the greatest quotes ever. Mm-hmm. He said, I can almost buy anything, but I can't buy time. Time is my most valuable asset. Mm. My second most valuable asset is my mindset. Because if I lose my mind, nothing matters anyway. Mm. Now, here's one of the richest people on the planet. He's saying time, knowledge. Bingo. What do most people value? Their fucking car, their house, the clothes they wear. They'll go and sink $3,000 on a Louis Vuitton fucking bag that they walk around with. That gives them no validation because no one really gives a fuck about your Louis Vuitton bag. You give a fuck about it because you think it gives you value. But no one else gives a fuck about it because these days everyone has a Louis Vuitton bag. So no one really gives a fuck
about it. If you don't have one now.
Yeah, but because you just bought it on credit, who cares? But the thing is that gives you value and validation. You lose that Louis Vuitton bag, you have no value, you have no validation. The true validation comes in the way you rock up every day and the shit that you work hard for. That's what it comes from. Do those things make life better? Yeah, like my standard is I rock up in a McLaren, right? That's my standard. When I fly business class. When I travel, we stay in nice hotels. That's my standard. Do I want to let that standard slip? No. But does it give me my value? Fuck no. I have people come up to me all the time. They're like, you know, I want to be like you because I want to have a supercar. I'm like, if you knew what it took to earn that thing, man, you probably won't want to have it because anyone could have it. The thing is that you don't want to work for it. Mm-hmm. Right? It's tough. Mm-hmm. Are you prepared to do what it takes? What it takes is extremely hard. Mm-hmm. Right? Just like everything, right? To be a good salesperson, it's extremely hard. Mm-hmm. To be a salesperson, it's easy, man. I can just pick up a phone, call a number, piece of cake. I think I can sell anything. That doesn't mean you're good at it. You just think you're good at it, right? To get good at it, it's a lot of work. You do that, you end up in the top 1%. Top 1%, you'll make the top 1% money. Mm-hmm. That's how it plays. You look after your body, right? Mm-hmm. Looking at someone else's six-pack saying, I want that doesn't mean shit. Getting the six-pack, it's fucking tough. Having a good relationship, it's fucking tough. Mm-hmm. Having good friendships, it's fucking tough.
So is being fat and broke, though. You choose your tough.
I agree with you, but it's extremely easy to
it's the path of least resistance, for sure.
100%. I always say comfortably uncomfortable or uncomfortably comfortable. Like which one, right? You're going to have one or the other. Mm-hmm. I live an uncomfortably comfortable life. Mm-hmm. Some people live a comfortably uncomfortable life. Whose is better? I don't know. You ask them, they're like, oh man, I don't want to work as hard as what you work.
Yeah.
Cool, then don't.
How much?
But then go ahead.
How much of personal development is helping people unlock what they truly are fighting for? Because I feel like that's the issue, is they don't have that hunger, they don't have that drive. Because if you really wanted it, like you said, you would get it.
Yeah. So one of my frameworks that I talk about all the time, I try to create things that are simple to follow, right? And the crazy thing with simplicity is that things that are so simple are normally so hard to get clear on. But once you get clear on it, everyone's like, oh, that's simple. Well, no shit, right? It's easy for a mechanic to work on a car now because cars are everywhere. But imagine the first dude that went from like a fucking horse to a car.
Yeah.
It's a pretty crazy invention, right?
It's a big jump.
It's a big jump.
It's a huge jump.
Right. We've just flown like in and out on planes like we've
Every
got
day.
like four flights in 3 days, something like that. 4 flights in 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, I hop on a plane, man. I get on there. I'm pissed off because the internet doesn't work. We're in the sky, man. Like, that shit is insane. We're in the fucking sky. And I'm sitting there. They bring me coffee and shit. Imagine that one day. Imagine like the Wright brothers, they're sitting there. They're like, you know what? I reckon if we wrap some cloth, a bed sheet around like some wood, I reckon we can make that thing fucking fly like a bird.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
And that was less than 150 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, that shit is phenomenal. Now we got jets, we got fighter planes that go like Mach 2, Mach 3 or whatever they do, break the sound barrier. We've got to space. Fucking Musk wants to go to Mars. Like, that shit is mind-blowing. But we just take that stuff for granted. So anyway, coming back to simplicity. Clarity times by standards plus environment equals success. And that's your success. So the first thing is, can you have standards without clarity? And the answer is no. Most people don't have high standards because they don't have clarity on what they actually want. So clarity is the first step to increasing your standards. And you'll know this with sales, right? Like, if you're not clear on how many calls you're going to do per day or what your conversion rate is and shit like that, you just pick up, you just start smashing some dials and you just hope and pray. When you know your numbers, now you've got clarity, now you've got high standards. So the best salespeople know the data, they've got clarity. If you're a business owner, I ask business owners all the time, why do you have a business? And they're like, oh man, I just want to make good money. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Why are you doing this shit in the first place? Like, do you want to be the best? Do you not? Like me, I want to build a global empire. Like, my whole thing is that I believe that all leadership is self-leadership and we're all leaders. Therefore, every person in the world has to consider themselves a leader. It's my job to do that. That's my purpose. That's why I do things. My personal life purpose, like the reason why I get up every morning is because for me, I just want to help people perform better. So if someone listens to this podcast and they perform better from listening to it, I've done my job. Every day I wake up because I want to perform better. My wife wants to perform better. I hope you want to perform better.
Absolutely.
I hope we all want to perform better. So I'm here. Like, if I can just drop at least one thing where you're like, you know what, I can just tighten shit up. I've done my job.
So fire.
So the thing is, like, without clarity, you don't have high standards.
You can't have standards.
But you'll reach a point where your standards are met, but you need to get clear again. So we have these times, like every level, you have a lack of clarity. Like it's almost like driving a car. You drive down the road, it's all clear, and then all of a sudden there's fog. And then you drive through it for a little bit. Now, what most people do is they stop the car and they're just like, oh, wait for the fog to clear. The problem is, if you've ever driven through fog, when you stop, the fog's just there because it's normally a low spot. If you just keep driving, you might have to slow down a little bit, but if you keep driving, it comes out the other side and it's fucking clear again. So we don't stop. We just got to slow down a little bit. We need to get clear again, or we need to keep moving, and then we'll get clear again. In our life, it's like that. There are these patterns of behavior that happen. I mean, I've worked with tens of thousands of people now, and I've been the private coach to some of the like top rich listers, professional athletes, sport teams, and stuff like that. There are common patterns of behavior, especially with driven people, that aren't spoken about. In psychology, a lot of psychology and a lot of neuroscience, and I know I'm going to piss people off when I talk about this, but because I get them all the time, right? Like, in the field of psychology, they spend so much time talking about what depression is. They don't talk about what the fucking solution is. But they'll be able to tell you, like, a lot of people that I meet, they're like, depression's this, depression's that. I'm like, can you define with such clarity what depression's not? Like, tell me how to get out of that shit. Don't tell me about it. Like, these days people are like, this is a narcissist. I'm like, how much time have you spent like learning about narcissism? They're like, oh man, all the time. I'm like, have you actually thought about how not to be a fucking narcissist and just get on with life and just do shit that's important? Like, people spend all this time focusing on problems. And unfortunately, a lot of the scientific community, they will know everything about fucking cancer, but they don't know anything about health. Isn't that mind-blowing?
It's mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing.
They're just studying the glass half empty, like just measuring and just like, it's like, why don't you just look at the water you have?
Yeah.
And it starts there. Like you said, it was that moment for you that you saw that you had legs that started to build this career and this change. And how important do you feel like that moment was for you? Was that one of your defining moments?
It's everything. Like the first defining moment, the big one was like, my value does not come from the validation of others. Like no one can build a great life through the validation of others.
Yeah.
Because the truth is that part of what I do, right, is the first thing of clarity is you have to define what you want.
Yeah.
Now I say to people, do you have a success map in life? And most people go, what's that? And they go, cool, that already gives me clarity. You don't know what you want.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what success is for you personally. Now, some people, they're like, well, you're successful. I'm like, how do you know? And they're like, well, because you got heaps of money.
It's not success.
That's not success. That's a part of life, but that's not success.
How do you define success?
Success is being able to live your values. Full stop. That's it. And that's why, like, my sister, her highest value is family. She's an amazing mum. Amazing mum. The way that her kids react and respond and the way that she reads them is phenomenal. It's, well, I'll give you an example. She's telling us a story. I've got a niece and nephew. My niece, it's my brother-in-law's birthday. So my niece creates this like figurine thing, like a snake thing at school out of clay or something like that. She gets it out the car. So she's being careful with it, puts it in the car, gets home, takes it off. And as she does, she pulls the board or moves the board forward and it falls off and it shatters everywhere. She bursts into tears. She's wailing. She's all upset. You know, I've wrecked daddy's present, da-da-da. My sister looks at it and she's like, hey, Ella, come here. How about this? How about we put it in a nice little box and we get all the bits and we gather them all together. And then what we'll do is we'll put it in a box together and we'll put some super glue in there. And what we'll do is we'll tell dad that it's his job to stick it back together and it's a puzzle. And Ella thought that was like the most amazing idea. So he wakes up the next day. She goes right in. Hey, dad, I got a puzzle for you. And so my brother-in-law had to stick it all back together. That was my sister's idea. Because when you're living your highest value, you're normally dialed in. So you know how to respond to things. Wow. Like if you've got a high value on wealth, you're dialed in with money. If you've got a low value, like people come to me all the time, they're like, money's the most important thing to me. And I'm like, really? So you think it's your highest value? And they go, yeah. And I go, how much money do you have? And they're like, oh, none. What you're doing is you're prioritizing something because it's an emergency situation. So if you're about to die, health is really important. But that doesn't mean it's your highest value. Because if it was your highest value, you wouldn't be in that situation in the first place.
Bingo.
So when we look at values are essentially a field of study called axiology. Axiology, it's not things like when people think about values, they think about things like kindness and love and respect and honor and all that. They're not values. They're social idealisms. No one wakes up in the morning and says, how do people treat me like shit? Or how do I treat people like shit? How do I hurt people? How do I dishonor people, disrespect people? No one does that, right? So the thing is that we all want those things. So they're social idealisms. In the ideal world, I wish that everyone would be kind to me, appreciate me, respect me, honor me, all of that shit. That's an idealistic state. Real core values are the way that we live and what we prioritize in our life. So my highest value is teaching, coaching, and learning. If you look at my life, 90% of my life is spent doing those things. When someone says to me, business is my highest value, and I go, really? Do you have a business? And they're like, no. And I'm like, wrong, my friend. Now I have parents who come to me and they say, kids are my highest value. And I go, okay, how many hours do you spend with them? And they go, I work 80 hours a week. What does that tell you? What does their life demonstrate? And they go, then they say the dumbest shit, right? They say, yeah, but if my kids were sick, then I would drop everything to look after them. Of course, because it's an emergency situation. So if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, down the bottom is survival. At the top is self-actualization. Do you want to live in survival or do you want to self-actualize? Self-actualize means we prioritize our values. Now, if I was talking to Brendan earlier, and I said, if you look at your life, what do you spend 70 to 90% of your time doing? He's like, working. And I said, cool. Now I know your highest value. There you go. There it is.
It's funny he said working though.
Why is that?
Well, because he's a coach and he also is in sales. So I thought he would have put like coaching and closing.
It doesn't really matter because that's his label. So everyone labels it different. That's why, like, when I'm working with people, one of the biggest mistakes, especially people who work in the self-development space, is that they project what they think onto others. I don't project. I ask. I'll give you an example. Someone will say, I'll say, what do you spend most of your time doing? And then they're like, I spend most of my time like talking and leading and connecting with people. And I'm like, cool. So would you say that leadership and connection is like the most important thing? And they're like, yeah, it's everything. There's already your answer. That's their label. Some people say it's connection. Sometimes I work with people and they say, when you actually break it down, their number one value will be family. So let's say you take a stay-at-home mum. That stay-at-home mum, when you ask her what's the number one most important thing where you spend most of your time, it'll be family. Everything she does is for family. So she'll go, well, I do washing, I do cleaning, I like make sure the house is clean, I take the kids to school, I drop them back off. Her whole life revolves around this idea of family. Then I say, okay, well, like what else is important? How else do you spend your time? She's like, well, I go catch up with friends, I socialize and so on. And then I'm like, what is that? What do you call that? And she's like, I just call that socializing or social. So her highest value will be family and her second highest value will be social. That's her value. That's what she calls it. Some people call that connection. That's not right or wrong. And the reason why we need to know is because that's how we prioritize life and not feel guilty. A lot of people come to me and they're like, family's my highest value. And I go, well, what do you spend most of your time doing? And it's normally women who do this, and it's a societal thing. And they'll say something like, well, you know, family should be my highest value. Here's something important.
Should.
The word should is an implanted value.
Yeah.
And so I say to them,
Posture.
who's the person whose highest value is family? And they're like, oh, that's my mum. So what's happening now is you're trying to please your mum and trying to prioritize family. But here's the truth. You're feeling guilty all the time because when you're working, you feel like you should be a better mum. But then when you're at home, you feel like you should be working. So here's the scientific term of what the scientific literature calls it when you can't win either way. You're fucked. Right. I'm glad you get my humor. But my point is, you're fucked because you can't win, right? When I spend time at home with my family, I feel guilty that I'm not working. But when I'm working, I feel guilty
because
that I'm
you're
not
not
home.
living an authentic, living your highest values.
Yeah. How awesome is it to be a parent and crush it in your career so that then you can provide for them whatever they want? For some people, that's super important. For others, it's not. And this is where parents will clash with each other. So one mum will say, well, how can a mum say that they care about their kids when they work all the time? But then that other mum who works all the time says, how can you care about your kids when you don't provide any financial stability? You can't take them on holidays to wherever they want. You can't buy them the Nikes or the shoes that they want. So they're both right through their own values. Neither of them's wrong. Okay, so I don't even know how we got onto value systems, but the clarity really comes down to what is your success map? First of all, what is your purpose in life? What are your values? Especially top 3 to top 4, because they drive all your behavior. Values are how you prioritize your time. And I meet people all the time who say, well, work's not that important to me. I just do it because it's a job. Then quit, motherfucker. Go quit, go live at home, go be on the dole, or just don't work. Well, no, you have to make money. So what you're telling me is that money is a priority. Therefore, just accept it. People create these bullshit ideals inside their own mind, which then fuck them up inside the head because they feel like they can't win and they have all these shoulds. Should is implanted value.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Yeah, all that stuff.
So, first of all, get clear on your values. Number 1. Number 2 is your purpose. Your purpose comes from your values. Then from there, if you want to live a fulfilling life, because fulfillment comes from purpose, values, lifestyle design, or lifestyle balance. Now, in this day and age, everyone says to me, like, I actually had a job interview the other day, and I asked the person, I said, what do you think of work-life balance? And they said, it's everything. And I said, not my person.
Get him off the podcast or the interview.
Yep, because not my person.
It's everything.
Because to them, they want a work-life balance. The idea of work-life balance is bullshit.
Yeah.
Because for me, if I work, like I've been on tour here and doing all this stuff, to me, working like a 60-hour week is completely normal. And that's where I feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
If I work 20 hours a week, I would feel completely unfulfilled and lost.
Same.
So for me, that is my balance. My wife, Jess, knows that I work 60 hours a week. In fact, she works 60 hours a week in the business. For her, that's completely normal. People tell me all the time, you work too much. And I'm like, hang on, I work too much for you.
Yeah, why are you telling me how to live my life?
100%.
Why you determine my highest values?
Because they think that if I'm suffering because I'm like working all the time, I'm not suffering, I'm living, man. This is how I love life.
Yeah.
Now, I go to the gym for an hour to 2 hours a day, depending on how I feel, right?
Sure.
And so I'll be working out, exercising. Some people go, you exercise too much. I exercise too much for you, motherfucker. Shut up.
Yeah, those are the people you just push to the side.
Yeah,
because they're not aligned with your highest values. Like, you want to align with people that are within your highest values or complementing, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, even this, we're going out for dinner after this podcast, right? How cool is that? I get to go and hang out with my wife, who comes to dinner with us. So I'm working on my relationship. She's smiling there because she's hungry. So the thing is that I can have everything I want all at the same time. I'm going out with friends. I'm going out with business associates and people that I'm going to do business with, or potentially at some point do business with, and my wife all at the same time. Why? Because I just integrate my life. So for me, I don't believe in this, like in Western cultures, for some weird reason, we just separate everything. So we're like,
Work, life.
Yep.
9 to 5 is work. Anything outside, it's family.
But it's not even that, right? It's like, okay, well, if I go to the gym, then I'm not with family. So when I'm with family, then I'm not at the gym. And so in their mind, they're always torn.
Yeah,
in my life, I'm
never
like,
winning.
I can go to the gym and work. So I take a videographer with me. I go have a workout. Jess and I, we go have business meetings. And I'm like, cool, let's go for a walk. Let's go grab a coffee. We go for a half an hour walk. We're getting exercise in. We go grab a coffee. We discuss some business stuff. We walk back home. Bang. We've just had an hour and a half meeting. Mm-hmm. I'm going to sit at a desk like every other fucking fat Oompa Loompa, sitting there having a meeting, and they're like, oh man, I fucking hate meetings. Because it's boring. Go for a walk. Why can't you do that? Oh, because some asshole in a book told you can't have a meeting when you're walking? Like, you got to integrate life. So in Eastern philosophy, everything's the same, right? So you have life.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
It's life.
Health is part of life. Mindset's part of life. Career's part of life. Family's part of life. So all you do is you just live life, and you fill as much up in your bucket as you want. Like I say this all the time. People ask me about time management. I'm like, well, first of all, you can't manage time, so get rid of the term. What you're calling it is action management. The only thing we can manage is our actions. So we don't manage time. Time management is bullshit. Action management is legit. So we manage actions.
Yeah.
So now, how do we manage our actions in the 24 hours that are available? Cool. Well, I need 8 hours sleep. Bang. I got 16 hours left. What do I fill the rest of the time with? Then what I do is I just put in shit in the buckets.
Values, purpose.
Yep.
Time.
Well, it's all the same thing, right? So I just fill it all up.
Where does vision and goals fit in?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, the bucket gets tipped out and we start again. So I just put 8 hours in of sleep, and then the rest of the time, like, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours with my wife having dinner and having a chat and maybe watching some TV or a movie. What else? Okay, cool. I'm going to spend some time doing some work. And so that's action management, right? Now, in pillar 1 of what I call the success map, you have what fulfills you. Mm-hmm. Because my question is, if you do something that fulfills you, what's the likelihood you're going to stick at it long term?
100%.
Yeah. So what's the likelihood that someone who sticks at something for a long time is probably going to succeed at a very high level?
100%.
Yeah. So
and if they love it too, they're fulfilled and they love it.
The same thing, right? Fulfillment is love. So if we love what we do and we're fulfilled doing it, and we're living our purpose, our values, and we've got this idea of like lifestyle balance, which isn't really lifestyle balance, but it's like, how do we manage our times and do the things that we enjoy? If you get that right, you're fulfilled. The likelihood of you succeeding and achieving long term is extremely high. You're going to keep doing it. The reason is that people do shit that they don't enjoy. Like, I meet people at the time, they're like, I hate going to the gym. Okay, what are you doing now? Well, I'm doing a 12-week challenge. Okay, what's the likelihood that you're going to continue after 12 weeks? Okay, so you want to be fit for 12 weeks. And then now let's say you're 20 years of age. So now for the next 60 years, you're going to be a fat, lazy piece of shit. Oh, well, no, I'll probably keep it going after that. No, you won't. I can almost guarantee it. In fact, I would probably chuck $100,000 on it. If you throw in 100, I'll throw in 100. I'm pretty sure I'm going to win. Why? Because you hate it. So let's find something you enjoy and let's think about it for the next 60 years. Look, what are you going to do for 60 years? That's fulfillment.
Okay.
The next pillar is direction.
Here, pause it. Before we get to direction.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the love.
Yeah.
There was a time I was like afraid to go to the gym. All these guys were jacked. I was super skinny, intimidated, and I hated it. But now I love the gym. So where do you think?
Hang on, you didn't hate the gym. You hated the judgment.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I did like the gym. So I did like the gym. So, okay, what about...
You just had a fear of judgment.
What about management? Right now, I'm like in my business. I'm like, dude, I do not like managing people. I like leading people, training people, coaching people. But all my coaches are telling me, dude, you have to learn how to manage people if you want to go to the next level.
Yeah. So
it's like, I have to learn how to love management, even though I hate it right now. Or like, what's your mind? What do you, from a human performance mindset, is that, do I really hate it? Or is it maybe I'm seeing it different? Like you said, maybe it's, what do you think?
So you're going to do it? Are you going to delegate it? You're going to eliminate it, or you're going to automate it? That's it. So I'm not a great manager, right? It's not my skill set. I'm a great leader, not a great manager.
Yeah.
So if I got to tell you more than 3 times to do the same thing, I just want to smash your head through the table.
That's how I feel.
That's definitely not my thing, right? I have, funny,
it's a joke.
But it's a joke,
I get it,
right?
I get it, yeah.
But the thing is that management isn't something that I love.
Right.
I love leadership. I love inspiring people. I love, these conversations. I love sitting down with my team and training and developing them and things like that. I don't want to sit there and be like, dude, you said you were going to do that same thing that I've asked you to do for the last like 6 months. And you know that it's supposed to be due every Thursday, and every Thursday you're always late. You know, hey, what's going on? Like, how do we get it done like, I'm just like, do you want to work here or not, motherfucker? If not, get it done by Thursday. If not, go. Done. That's it. Whereas some people might think like, that's all right. You just got to sometimes just ask them again. And I'm like, okay, well, that's why it's your job, not mine. Every one of us are sort of, we're inclined to do certain things. So I think we can learn anything we want to.
Yeah.
Right. Providing it's meaningful to us.
Sure.
So if you want to learn management because it's meaningful to you, then you will learn it. I think over time, like for me personally, I want to be great at business, not just great at one area of business, because some people are great at one area. I want to be great at business. Mm-hmm. So like some of the areas that I don't do the best in at the moment is like really honing in on finances. So that's an area that I'm working on at the moment. Mm-hmm. It's not an area that I hate. I don't love it. But what I do is I love learning.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I want to learn this because this is important to me. Do I enjoy the learning of it? Not really, because all learning is uncomfortable if you're pushing new barriers, right? Mm-hmm. Anything that you do that is challenging you is going to be uncomfortable. So I'm uncomfortable really honing in on the finance. I love the overviews, but like actually sitting there and like honing down and reading through tax documents and shit like that. Jess does that stuff all the time. Like she loves that stuff. But for me, she's like, I'm just going to sit in bed and read tax documents. I'm like, you're a psycho. It depends what your intention is. And this is why purpose, values, and lifestyle balance is important, because if it links to your values, and when I say link, if you've got a greater intention that aligns with your purpose and your values, you do it.
Yeah.
So I want to be good at business. It's a high value of mine, my top 3 value. So my third highest value is business and wealth creation. So an area of business that I'm not good at, that sucks, I'll still do it anyway because it's still part of my values. So I'm like, you know what? I'll do it anyway. But that's like a parent who wakes up in the middle of the night. They don't want to get up at 2:00 in the morning because their kid's sick, but they do it because they love the child. So the thing is that we will do stuff that we don't love to do because it's part of the greater purpose and part of the greater value. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Learning is essentially bricks that create walls. So we can only stack certain pieces of information at certain points in time, right? Like you can read a whole book. And this is the issue that I have with school, right? They force you to sit there and read a whole book. And so you read it from start to finish and then you get a test. And so you've got to cram yourself and force yourself to try to learn the whole book. But the information that you need isn't in that whole book. So you go and ask a medical doctor. And I realize this from working with a lot of doctors and people in specialty fields. And the good ones, I say this to them as well. It's like, I wish I went to university and I wish I had a uni education. And they're like, you don't need it. And I'm like, it's interesting because if you meet a lot of insecure people who use university as their validation, those people will believe that if you don't have a university education, they're smarter than you. You meet people who don't use university or college as their validation for their value, and they'll say to you, man, I forgot more shit at uni than what I remembered.
Yeah.
So like learning is a process. It's a lifelong process. Like we were talking, who was I talking with yesterday? And they were having a chat and they were just saying like, it was Brad Lee. And Bradley, he said like, I don't remember shit from like high school. And then one of the guys walked past, he's like, come here. What do you remember from high school? And he's like, I don't know. I learned how to pick up chicks. I learned how to drink beer. I learned how to party. I learned how to build relationships with people. And he's like, do you remember anything from maths class? He's like, I don't know. I think I remember what a hypotenuse was. And I was like, that was it. But what my point is like, is learning is a lifelong process. And like right now, if you're stuck with a problem, you need to go learn and figure out that problem. Mm-hmm. There's a brick. Then go on to the next problem. Learn what you need to learn, figure out that brick. Yeah. You just keep putting the bricks together and you get smarter and smarter. And you actually have an intention for the knowledge.
Yeah.
People learn shit that they don't have an intention for at university or high school or whatever. And this isn't a criticism. It's just, it is what it is. So like you go to a medical doctor and you're like, I've seen it before. Like I hang out with, and I look after my health and shit like that. Mm-hmm. I was only with the doctor a couple of weeks ago and he's like, oh, hang on, let me just have a look. And he goes on Google and he goes, oh yeah, that's what it means. I was like, see, these motherfuckers are using Google. I use Google too. So like, I'm not saying that I'm smarter than them or anything like that, but we tend to remember things that are important to us.
Yeah.
So we want to stack that knowledge. And I got way off track because we were talking about
the step 1 pillar.
Yeah. So step 1 pillar is fulfillment. The second pillar is, it really comes down to direction and drive. So in order to have direction and drive, what creates our direction and what creates drive? So the first thing is a vision. So we need to document our visions, and visions are things that consistently pop up in our mind that are unique to us. So, for example, like Elon Musk, from a young age, he thinks about going to space and shit. I've never thought about going to space, right? Like it hasn't even, someone says to me like, oh, hey, would you ever go to space? And I'm like, I don't fucking know if I had to, but like if they had seminars and shit up there, I'd probably go. But like, cause I'd want to talk, or I'd want to teach.
Coaching and learning.
100%. Do I just want to go up there for shits and giggles? Fuck no. Like I have no intention of whatsoever going to space.
Yeah.
Although I do want to go on fighter planes because I love speed and I love like crazy
adrenaline stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But do I want to go bungee jumping? Fuck no. I did it once and I almost had a heart attack. Not my thing. So visions will pop into our head consistently, but most people ignore them. If we see ourselves running a large organization, that's unique. Write it down and document
I
it.
just saw a blonde girl.
Perfect. Write it down and document it.
I gotta keep writing it down.
Yeah, honestly, how many people have thought that before, right? That they're like, this is I can see my family in the future. I'm like blonde-headed girl, 2 kids, whatever. That's important to them. I don't see a blonde-headed girl and 2 kids. That's never been in my vision. So, it's just, they're there. They flash up. There's an intention for them. I don't believe that anything happens for no reason. Like if you look at the universe, it's way too structured. Even though there's something called the law of entropy in physics, and it's chaos theory, right? So there's like more chaos in the universe, but I don't agree with that. I don't believe it, because if you actually really study sciences, why the fuck do we study any science if it's just chaos? It has to have structure.
There's a divine being to it, order.
Well, I'm personally, I love philosophy and I love science. I can't say that there's a divine being because I can't prove it, but I can't disprove it either. So I understand the philosophy of it. I can't prove it. I can't disprove it. So I'm a bit more scientific with it, but I'm not like, I got a heap of friends who are religious and they say, it's God. And I'm like, God is the same as like a universal structure. Cool. And I ask friends, I'm like, what does God mean to you? And they're like, it's a dude sitting up on a cloud. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then someone else is like, I don't know, it's just the universal intelligence. And I'm like, cool. I ask someone else what God is, and different people have different ideas of it.
Sure.
None of them are wrong. Right. So I'm open-minded about all that stuff. I love it, like, cause it keeps me
learning,
inquisitive. Yeah. So there seems to be this structure in the universe, whether it's God, whether it's a divine being, whether maybe the universe is just structured, maybe we don't understand it. So we have to project an iconography or like human-like characteristics onto something that we don't understand, like we do fucking animals. Right.
So you don't think there's a divine creator? You don't think there's a creator of creation?
I don't know. I don't.
You don't know.
All that. So what I love about Islam, right, is that Islam says you cannot draw Muhammad.
You cannot draw Muhammad?
No, you can't draw God. Because do you know what humans do? And this is very well in scientific literature, in psychological literature, this is well proven. We tend to project human-like characteristics onto things in order to understand them. So God is normally drawn as a human in Christianity.
Well, because Jesus.
But how do we know what? How do we know what God looks like? We can only understand.
Are you saying God the Father, or because I believe in the Trinity, right? God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, because I'm like Christian, right?
Yeah.
So if they draw a picture of Jesus, I don't know if that's accurate from thousands of years ago, 2024 years ago. But for me, that's the
or a white pasty guy who lives in the Middle East with long hair.
Well, that's
probably pretty inaccurate, right?
Yeah, that's probably not accurate. But who knows? He could have had long hair though. We don't
Maybe.
know. It doesn't matter though. I think for me, it's like this. It's this. How did this table get here? Like, why is this table even existing?
Well, I can answer that in a few different ways.
I would love to hear them.
Right. So, and I don't want to go too far off track because we're on
type
direction. But like, what happens is humans project. Actually, here's something that's important, right? So from the field of neuroscience, we only understand ourselves. Full stop. You don't understand anything that's not you. How can you?
I think you can.
How?
It's called empathy. Stepping into another person's shoes. Like,
how do you know though what they feel like if you haven't felt that feeling?
Well, it's like describing it, right? It's like, how do you know 1 + 1 is 2?
But you only know that because someone else has taught you that. So you know it's your own internal learning, right?
So you take other people's word for what they're saying. They could be lying to you, of course. But if someone tells me I'm feeling this, and as humans we can relate to each other because I think there's a universal.
Do you want to get really fucked up?
Tell me.
Okay. If you study optics, right, of the eye.
Okay, the optic nerve, yeah.
Yeah. Or optics, right? So optics is the study of light.
Okay.
What does the eye actually see?
Darkness?
Well, it doesn't see anything. Because the eye is a receptor of light waves, essentially. Or you could say light particles, but it depends on whether it's quantum physics or whether it's physics.
Sure.
So essentially, our eyes are a receptor of light. Therefore, we don't see anything. There's no such thing as another person sitting in this room. It's an interpretation that happens within your brain because your eyes only take in light. They don't take in the image. They take in light. Therefore, your brain has to interpret it. Now, if you study touch is very ubiquitous. So if you study physics, it's very, very hard to define what touch is. Now we can, in biology, we go, okay, well, touch is like when we feel something on our skin and the nerve, and okay, now let's break it down and get into physics. So physics is a study of, I guess you could say, energy. When we get down to that level, we go, well, how do you define touch? How does it exist? Because if two particles touch each other, they form different elements. So if we touch things, we actually create different elements. So when we walk, our feet stick to the ground and we're fucked. So there's a lot of different debates around this, right? Even sound is compressions of air. So we don't hear anything. That's why people say this shit all the time, right? They're like, yeah, but words can hurt. Words can't hurt, motherfucker. Your interpretation of those words, the meaning that you attach to those words hurts you. It hurts you. It doesn't hurt anybody else. It's your interpretation. So what my point is like our whole reality is essentially interpretation which happens within our own brain. The only thing that we understand is our past experiences that we've interpreted within our brain. Our whole of reality is an interpretation. So we can't understand anything that we can't interpret, which means we can't understand anything that we haven't gone through, experienced, or anything that's not us.
You don't think that we can read a story and hear about someone and then relate it to something we had before, and then we formed a new
The relationship,
connection?
yes, but that you're still taking a past experience, right, in order to understand a new experience.
Yes, you're stacking, like we talked about, stacking the learning, yeah?
So the word empathy, you mentioned it before, the word empathy means to suffer with others because it comes from the root word compassion.
Yeah.
And the word passion means to suffer. The word compassion means suffer with others, and empathy sort of is a byproduct of that. The reason why we suffer with others is because of the experiences that we've had in our own life. So when we see someone else suffer, we go, shit, it brings up our past wounds or our past triggers, and we go, shit, I got to save that person or I got to help them. But here's the thing. You can only ever experience that which you've gone through. When you've gone through pain and you haven't seen the benefits in the pain, you then want to save other people, which is why we become empathetic. We don't need empathy to connect with others. I don't need empathy to connect with you at all. What I need an understanding, and I can have an understanding without being empathetic. That's what makes me a great coach. Because a client comes in and said, this bad thing happened to me. And I'm like, okay, that you're labeling it as a bad thing, but we've all been through bad things. And in the future, we look at them, we're like, thank fuck that happened. So we perceive things are bad in the moment, but in the future, they don't turn out to be bad. Therefore, we've learned what we needed to learn.
Yeah.
I believe everything in life, based on my understanding of different philosophies, different religions, and different sciences, that everything in life is essentially an evolution of information. Our genes carry information from one generation to the next. Our experiences create epigenetic tagging in the next generation. So therefore, everything is just information being transcribed or transmitted, whatever, through space. Well, through space and time, I guess you could say. So if you learn what you need to learn, you get the information that you need to get in order to move to the next level of life. If you don't learn, you repeat it. So life is like school.
Okay.
We learn shit and we get a test. If you pass the test, you go to the next grade. Going to the next grade is cool. You're like, fuck yeah, I'm in the next grade. Shit's going on. Like business is like this, right? You're like, man, I just crushed it last quarter, smashed sales targets. Fuck yeah, I'm winning. Then you go like that for a little bit and life goes, all right, now it's time to test. You ready? Yeah, I'm ready. You get a little test. You're like, it's not too bad. Next one comes, next one comes, next one comes in, gets bigger and bigger. Until you get to the point you're like, fuck, I don't know that I can handle this shit. But of course you can, because you've been through it 50 times before. So the thing is, we get challenged. Those challenges create adversities. Those adversities have to be overcome because it makes you a better person. So it makes us a better human, a better man, a better woman. So those adversities are there to force our growth, because the only thing that really evolves is information. And we have to have growth in order to get the information that we need to go to the next level. Life is just lessons and tests. Every level is just lessons and tests. When I'm cruising through life, I'm like, I can't wait for the smack because it's coming. It's just coming. It's a matter of time. So when it rocks up, I'm just like, cool, let's play this game. I need to go learn some shit. I got to figure out what the problems are. I got to figure out what the obstacles are. I got to figure out who can help me, where the knowledge is coming from. Is it a mentor? Is it a coach? Do I need to read some books?
Yeah.
How do we figure this shit out and go through this together?
Love that.
And then from there, all that happens is you go through these adversities, you go through the challenges. You're like, fuck, I don't know that I can handle this. You have the sleepless nights. You have all the bullshit. Then all of a sudden you come out the other side and you're like, hell yeah, nailed it again. And then you become complacent again. You're like, oh man, I'm just cruising through life. Fucking everything's sweet. You get all complacent again and bang, life hits you again. Lessons and tests, my friend. That's
Lessons
it.
and tests.
So my point is when it comes back to this, right? Like when people talk about empathy, they're essentially talking about suffering with others because they haven't learned what they needed to in order to close that part of their life or in order to heal
And
from
have
it.
gratitude from it, right?
Yeah. And that's why gratitude is so important, because when you learn what you need to learn, you get the gratitude from it. So we've all gone through the relationship breakup where you're like, this is the worst thing that ever happened. 10 years later, you're like, that's the best fucking thing that ever happened. What happened? You learned what you needed to learn to become a better person. You went through the adversity, you figured shit out, and now you're a better person because of it. Now you got better relationships, you're a better person, all of that shit.
Yeah.
So I don't subscribe to the empathy model. I don't subscribe to being compassionate to others. I think that that's a weakness and a flaw in most people. And so I meet coaches all the time. They're like, oh man, I'm so burnt out having to work with people all the time. And like, I take on all their shit. And I'm like, that's because you fucking haven't learned what you need to learn.
Yeah.
I don't take on other people's shit.
Mm-hmm.
You have a problem, you have adversity, you have challenges. We're here to figure it out. I figure out people's shit and help them with it. That's what makes a great coach.
I love
right?
that.
So I don't, at the end of the week, people are like, man, how do you deal with everyone's problems? I'm like, I don't.
You reframe them.
Yeah. They
And you
deal
help
with
them
their own problems.
And you encourage them to help change their perspectives and their frames so that they can, like you said, learn the lesson and walk away with a, attitude of gratitude.
100%.
essentially.
You know what my job is as a coach and as a human being in life is to figure out my own shit and be a better man every day. That's it. That's my fucking job.
Like you said,
Their job, their job as a client is, and my job as a coach is to help them to figure out their shit faster. I don't take on the work. I don't bear the load. I don't take on their responsibilities and shit. That is irresponsible. Most coaches do that.
Yeah.
I don't do that stuff. I help them to become better leaders and to take on their own self-leadership. It makes them a better person. And that's, some people think that I'm an asshole for it. I guarantee I get better results with my clients than they fucking do. So it is what it is.
I
right.
love that.
But anyway, coming back to it, because I know we got to wrap up.
Yeah. Walk me through it.
So drive, vision, document them, keep refining them, keep track of them. You've got mission. A mission, most people confuse vision and mission. Now, in business, they're different, but in your personal life, the visions are the visions that pop into your mind. The mission is the journey that you're about to go on in order to achieve those visions. That's all that it is. That's why it's called a mission. It's a fucking mission. I go to all these business courses and stuff, and they're like, yeah, but a mission is like the future end outcome. It's like, that's not a fucking mission. That's an endpoint, right? It's an objective.
Yeah.
A mission, like if we're going and we're traveling interstate,
It's a journey.
the mission is the journey, right?
It's a journey.
So we've got to describe the journey so we have clarity. So now we describe that. So we've got the visions, we track them.
Where are you going?
The vision, the mission is essentially how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
And we describe it, right? Then from there we have goals. Goals, and I really have to be super clear with this. Goals are not anything that you can really clearly define. I mean, you can define the endpoint that you want,
Yeah.
but you can't define the timeline.
Yeah, I like that. I
It's
agree
a
with
guess.
that. 100%.
Right. And here's the thing. And I say this quite a lot on podcasts and stuff like that when I'm teaching people this stuff. People become attached to the goal because they're attached to outcomes. Never, ever, ever, ever be attached to outcomes because it'll fuck up your self-worth.
Totally. Expectations here, reality's here.
Yep.
Now you feel bad even though you probably got further, right? It's like,
100%. Your job is
Learned
to
a lot.
become a better person every day
Level
on
up.
that journey.
Yeah.
Right. That's where you get your validation, right? Don't fuck up on the journey. And if you do, you'll beat yourself up a little bit, get back on the horse again and keep riding. Most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them.